Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast. Track 1, Thug Motivation 101. I guess this is kind of... The title track is
I'm raising my hand, okay? I'm sitting up front. I'm raising my hand.
Teacher's
okay?
Pet Moulz tonight, okay. I'm in the back, goofing off, class clown style, foot on
Dr.
the desk.
Jeezy, would you like an apple? How about a Red Delicious or a Granny Smith? Your choice. Got both.
Would you like me to buff your cranium today? Okay. All right. Listen, this is produced by Shoddy Red and Flat 6.
Wow, the fuck shit starts early tonight, boys and girls. I'll tell you that much. All right. Hold on tight to your captain, folks. Hold on extra tight to your captain.
Whatever you gotta call it, man. Fuck shit.
I'm getting the sense that there's going to be some turbulence tonight.
God. Okay. Well, what are we working with in terms of Moulz ratings here?
Oh man. What are we working with? Bro, this is a flat 8. It's tied for my favorite song on the whole project, actually.
Wow, okay. Huh. Is this a cult classic record for people or something?
A little bit, yeah. It's a pretty iconic intro. Let me just put it that way, because the first time I ever heard Jeezy, he was actually on the Fabulous album Real Talk.
Now this
which
is the
I think
rapper,
we talked about.
Fabulous, not a...
It was not on the Fabulous album called Real Talk, because it was not a Fabulous album, to be clear. But on the album by the artist Fabulous entitled Real Talk,
okay,
there's a song called Do the Damn Thing, which, we did a quote-unquote review of back when we did Trap or Die in the mixtape season. But because it's on that album, we kind of just gave a rating, and, we'll eventually cover it when we do that album.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I heard him, but he left so little of an impression on me, I didn't even know who he was. So when, this album leaked and people were buzzing about it online, I didn't make that connection that, oh, he's the guy from that Fabulous song. I just checked the album out. And as I said, the first time I heard this album, I wasn't blown away by the album. It's one that grew on me because my friends were listening to it a lot, and certain tracks that I had kind of disregarded ended up getting over with me because I heard them, in my friends' cars most of the time. And it made me go back and re-listen to the album. And, over time I've grown to appreciate this album more. Doing it this week, I've come to appreciate it a little less in some ways. But not this song in particular. This song has remained a flat 8 ever since the first time I heard this album. And I just gotta say, this Shoddy Red production, you have to imagine what it's like for me, especially being from New York, in 2005, hearing this, pressing play on the album, and hearing this sound, because this isn't trap music like the stuff we had just covered from the T.I. album, Trap Music. This is much darker sounding.
That's true, but I don't even like this beat. Is I just plucky and weak is what this beat is.
Oh, I like this beat, and I like all the little accoutrement in the beat as well. Man. The money counter beeping, and just the kind of atmospherics that add to the beat here. It was a pretty revolutionary sounding piece of production to me the first time I heard it. Now there's dozens and dozens and dozens of beats like it that would come in its wake. But Shoddy Red, very influential producer for sure. We wouldn't have a lot of, Flockavelli, for example, and Lex Luger and Southside and stuff like that. I feel if it wasn't for like a shoddy Red.
I have him to blame.
I love this intro because to me, it's very evocative. It's very kind of slap you in the face style. I used to hit the kitchen lights, cockroaches everywhere. Immediately, if that doesn't paint a mental picture for you, then we're not hearing it the same. And I think of that segment in Creepshow with all them cockroaches running around when I hear that. And yeah, I feel like when he says I used to hit the kitchen lights, I think about those harsh fluoros, like the fluorescent kitchen lights, coming on and the bugs crawling everywhere. I'm immediately immersed in the environment that he's writing about.
Well, two things. One, I actually like that line too. I mean, first line of the song, good. He came in stepping. Okay, it was a good line. Yeah, good imagery.
Like, this is not the first project from Jeezy, but on a national level, this is maybe going to be the first time a lot of people hear him, like, and really absorb that they're hearing him, like I was doing at the time. And to hear this, it was a hell of an introduction. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's great at rapping on this album. We talked about that on the Recession, because I was saying on there, I feel like people were kind of sleeping on him a little bit. Like, he was coming hard throughout that whole album, whether it was some trap shit or like some kind of pseudo-conscious shit. I was really fucking with Jeezy on that album. To this day, I think that's his best album. And I don't think his MCing is quite at that level on this album, but I think the charisma is already there. He's got a lot of, presence on a track. And that's kind of what he's banking on.
When I was listening to this album this week, I just had in the back, the front of my mind really, was like, I know people love this album. It's a cult classic album. And I'm trying to think, okay, maybe it was his voice. Just, it had to deal with when certain shit hits at a certain time, it can take over the world. I understand the benefit of timeliness and novelty in a moment. And like you hear something and hits your ear a certain way. But, to me, like the true greats, generations pass and a person can hear it and still feel that je ne sais quoi. With Jeezy, I'm listening and I'm like, okay, I can understand how it could have, shook up the world.
But you feel like you have to be there.
Yeah, I don't think it
to witness the moment come like firsthand, and to not at this point have heard Jeezy rap better, have heard these kind of beats done to death at this juncture in the game, however many years later, almost 20 years later now.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've told him before on the show, I became a Michael Jackson stan in the early 2000s when I was like 7-8 years old, right? And at that point, I was born in 93. So like, of course that's around when it would happen. But like, I could feel the same electricity that I guess people felt in the 80s and 70s and stuff without even knowing like that's how they felt. So like the more I dove into him, I'm like, oh, this nigga was well, it makes sense he was a superstar because he's amazing. I listen to Jeezy and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this holds up. I don't feel that electricity that seemed to
not
surge
everybody
through
was
electrified
else. Though. We just talked about this,
Well,
this was
true. I don't mean in a universal sense.
It was a street classic. Like a certain type of individual was fucking with this album. Let me put it to you like this. This is one of the last albums Mr. P was fucking with. Like he liked this and The Becoming by Beanie Siegel. And I don't think he likes a single rap album made after either of those two albums. And he still listens to this with the same level of excitement that he listens to Ready to Die. And part of it just feels like, yeah, if you were there for this, and especially if you were in any way contributing to that kind of lifestyle, then this shit is like your soundtrack, right? Like, as great as the rapping is on Clips, We Got It for Cheap, Clips and Re-Up Gang that we did back in the mixtape season, I don't think real street dudes were bagging up to that. I think they were bagging up to this.
It's not even about it being like real trap music, real hood music, real hustler music. It's just that like what he's offering, I don't think it's essential. Like, I see how it moved people, but it's like, take for instance, we talk all prime Young Thug, you know, like 2014, 2015, early 2016, when he was electrifying. I don't live his lifestyle. I mean, this lifestyle obviously got him sent to jail, but like, there's
something unconventional about him where, again, like, I think people are listening to Future out there who are really like out there like that. Like, I don't think that they're listening to Young Thug because I think it's gay because he wears women's clothing and all the other like 100 other reasons people would say they didn't fuck with him at that time that we were dealing with as fans of Young Thug.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, though, what he did, I think that electricity, I don't know, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but it still sounds fresh and you can see how.
And it's a different skill set, honestly. Like, Thug is in the lineage of like Wayne, and he's very much a stylist. I don't think Jeezy is a stylist. I think Jeezy is a formalist with completely different intention behind his music.
I mean, intentions aside and like all that, I just mean in the sense that when I hear this album in 2023, this doesn't feel like it should be a part of like required listening, you know, like, I mean, if you're doing a history lesson on trap, yes, but in terms of music,
that's what I'm saying. Okay. If you want to make the argument based on music, let's hear your take throughout the review. But, you know, inarguably, this album is a pillar of quote unquote trap music. It is one of
without a doubt,
the most formative, and this might as well be, you know, if Trap Music by T.I. is paid in full by Eric B. and Rakim, this might as well be, you know, It's a Big Daddy Thing by Big Daddy Kane.
I'm glad you said Rakim because I was just about to say, like, and this is definitely, y'all know me, I'm the whippersnapper, so I get nothing out of this. This is not me deep-throating elderly dick. But, like, when I heard Rakim, it still held up for me, where it's like, you know, okay, I still feel like traces of how this could have electrified people at the time.
But again, we're talking about two completely different guys.
True.
Because at the end of the day, one guy is known as the God, and the other guy is a guy who definitely improved and I think earned his spot amongst, you know, like the quote unquote greats of his era. At the very least, you know, Jeezy, the fact that he's still around putting out music and, you know, to some degree still relevant is a testament to, you know, the longevity of something, whether it's this album, whether it's, you know, whatever moves he's made throughout his career after this album. But, you know, I'm not going to straight up and call him one of the GOATs or anything like that. But, you know, of his generation, and especially of his kind of scene, if we're just talking about Atlanta, we're talking about trap, you can't tell the story without Jeezy. So in that sense, it's required listening. Now, if you want to make the argument, I listened to this album and I feel like I didn't need to hear this, not because it's not historically important, because I find it musically uninteresting, then make that case by all means. You're going to upset a lot of people, but fuck.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to intentionally upset anybody. I'm only here to speak
nobody's obligated to take your word as the gospel. We say that up top, but you know, I'd like to hear your opinion about why you don't like this or why you feel this isn't essential. To me, maybe this isn't the best song to stake that argument on, though.
Well, I mean, for me, it's a perfect song too, because I'm like, okay, this is the intro. This is the first impression on a world, like a major scale, major label debut. To me, this beat is anticlimactic. Like, everything about it is just kind of like lands with a thud. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's not bad. It's a flat 6, but it's just like, even in the realm of trap. I mean, T.I.'s on this album. We've done trap music. Even listening to that, I can personally, I'm only speaking for myself here. I can hear like, okay, I can see how this kind of had niggas stepping back like, oh, who is this? What is this? Okay. I hear like with as much as I've heard about this album, when I go and listen, it's just confusing to me because I'm like, this is what had y'all tripping? Now, granted, like you said, I guess to the real hustlers and the real street niggas, this was moving to them.
But to the quote unquote lames,
right?
Of which
and
I certainly
maybe that's my point, because I feel like me as a lame, I'm like, how did this move the needle for y'all?
Okay, so I'm just gonna sit here and tell you, like, I identify more with the lames than I do with the quote unquote real hustlers.
As do I.
A fucking rap nerd who's talking about rap albums from almost 20 years ago for hours. I mean, what category do you really think I'm in? But all I'm saying to you is that this is a dude who, when he came out, it was not like T.I. I don't remember when T.I. came out, people were like, oh, who the fuck does this guy think he is? There was a lot of, about him and Jeezy, by the way. Him and Rick Ross. Because they both came out around the same time. If you remember, Hustlin' by Rick Ross was like the following year after this. And they were so similar stylistically. It's like, all right, what is Jay-Z doing over at Def Jam? Just signing a bunch of guys that like just ad-lib in between their bars that are extremely spaced out. Like, they were calling it swag rap, basically. Like, this isn't good MCing. That's how people were on one side of the aisle kind of taking all of that. So yeah, this album did a lot for certain people when it came out. There were also a lot of people who were saying, yo, you guys are lowering your standards. This isn't good. And I remember there were people on OKP who were like, you're lame. You don't get it. Like, this rides. Like, you guys just go listen to your Talib. It's all good.
But that's what, like, I'm hung up on, because it's like, it was like, you say I don't get it. What confuses me most is like I'm listening to hear sort of like that inflection point, I guess, in terms of music. And like, it never, like, it's like how he didn't bring anything new to the table. Usually when we go back and we do these like landmark albums or these cult classics, like I can hear like, oh yeah, I can see how this sparked the stuff. But
what do you mean
later.
He didn't bring anything new to the table?
What does Jeezy do that hadn't already been done is what I'm saying, musically. There have been street niggas before. There have been rappers who sold drugs. For sure. And it just,
I think it was the sound specifically. It was the Shoddy Red who doesn't produce this entire
the production
album.
Then. Okay.
But yeah, I think those were the songs especially that were resonating with people. Like, people enjoy the singles from this album, but at the end of the day, the stuff that I feel was really resonating with people was the stuff that Shoddy Red produced.
Okay. So, okay. When you say that, it's like, okay, it makes sense. Like, the sound was newer for people. Because I'm thinking about him as, like, lyrically.
Because think about trap music. I mean, when was that? 02 or 03? 03. So we did trap music already. When was that? Season 11?
Yes.
Okay, so when we did that album, do you recall there being beats like this or Flockavelli sounding beats on there? Or was it a different sound than what you're, like, at this point accustomed to when you hear trap music?
It was different.
Right. So that's the difference. And it's not just Jeezy. Keep in mind, at the same time, Gucci and Zaytoven are also, like, concurrently kind of doing a thing. So there's a lot of things that are brewing between, let's say, like 03 and 05 that are gonna give way to a lot of what comes after up until, I mean, shit, it's still going, but it seems like it's slowing down a bit.
Okay, I'm making more sense of this. If they were just,
You've never heard beats that sounded like this, and especially like in such heavy concentration. I would say the closest thing you were doing was like maybe some of those Hypnotized, Camp Posse, like 3-6 Mafia type sounding beats have some equivalency, but no, it's different. It's Memphis. It's like a different sound.
Okay, so it's the sound. Now, here's the thing. Unfortunately for me, I'm not even the biggest fan of the sound, but at least I understand then what could have had people going crazy. No pun intended. But, you know, it's
and
like...
not like this is the first beat to ever sound like this. Keep in mind, this is his third quote-unquote album. It's just his first major label album.
Yeah. I mean, he was tearing up the streets, right?
This is maybe one of the first times people hear this kind of production saturated on an album that's basically like a national project and not just like a regional album. This is out on Def Jam. You got Jay-Z on it. There's clearly a push already with the first major label release to make him a national act.
I can respect people being enamored with a new sound.
Think about it in the context of 4 or 5 years later, Flockavelli comes out and it's like even more saturated and it's even more of this sound kind of on steroids.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to contextualize the albums. I'm leaving a lot of stuff out, but I'm trying to contextualize the stuff we've already done on the show for you.
Yeah. I got that. I'm
you know, a lot of it feels like
with,
you know, to some people maybe as a you have to be there thing, which that's totally fair. I think that that's valid. You know, if you were there though and you enjoyed this music on some level, it's kind of hard to say how you'd feel about it otherwise, right? Like, how am I going to tell you what I would think about the song if I never heard the song before? You know what I mean? Like, in the past, if this is my first time hearing it, I'd probably be closer at least to like a 7. Maybe I'd still enjoy it, but you know, some of that enjoyment is, you know, always going to be baked in with like a little bit of nostalgia.
Well, that was basically my question that started all this. Is like, I understand having to be somewhere, you know, to get something. But my question was like, well, what did you guys get? Because I feel like, again, me personally, if I was there and I heard this in 2005, yeah, I might have been like, oh, this is a new sound. But like, I would have been listening to the rapper as I do. And I would be like, well, he isn't saying anything that I haven't heard. So like, that's why I was asking, like, what had people so riled up? And if it was really based
and definitely
on the music,
it was the voice,
his persona,
too.
As he was saying in his interview, like, oh, they like me. They like me as Jeezy. But yeah, the voice.
It was the voice. You know? And I think also the style, even though some people would say it was very simple and the taking a lot of space in between each bar and just dropping an ad lib in between was like lazy
okay,
rapping.
The ad libs too. That would have been new. I can understand that. I mean, like the new modern ad lib rappers are like Cardi.
He was a pretty evolutionary and revolutionary ad lib rapper. Okay. And his ad libs are different than like 50 and Jim Jones, you know, like those guys are great shit talkers. Jeezy's ad libs are like
he features them as a part of the song.
Yeah, like, their vocals, their instrumentation, they almost should be written out in the lyrics.
Well, they were on the Bad website, and I actually have something to say. Like, I was scared the second it comes on. The first actual words, not the verse, but like vocals rather, is just like a hush, like A, and I'm like, oh God, A? Is this where A starts?
Atmosphere, bro. Boom 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 boom.
I thought you were talking about the rapper Atmosphere or the rap group duo.
No, I'm talking about building up an atmosphere. That's
well. Listen, I'll give him this.
This intro's not hitting hard enough, and it's like it's not supposed to. It's building up a certain atmosphere, and then he hits the lights, and you get like a little bit of like a bump up into second gear, but the song's not going crazy. By nature, it's setting the scene. It's immersing you in everything.
Yeah, I mean, well, if that's the case, it just wasn't doing that hard enough for me, you know.
And to me, the beat sounds like what he's rapping about.
Well, in my case, I don't think what he's rapping about sounds cheap and anticlimactic. But I mean, he's of all the tracks on here, I think this is one of his better performances, both lyrically and, you know, vocally. You talked about the cockroach line. That was good. I got, You know, you talking about kitchens fumed up, niggas jamming Tupac, got my Benihana on, working 2 pots. It's a more good imagery. You niggas just write, I recollect. That's a bar. Of course, we're in 2005, so Donald Trump is not persona.
It's very funny to me how
so,
occasionally he randomly stumbles upon like a bar that's so
actual,
dumb
like,
it loops
gem.
back around to being like genius.
It happens a handful of times on here. I mean, I don't think you niggas just write, I recollect is dumb. I think
that's not one of them. But there's one that I feel like he stumbled into a genius bar and didn't even mean to.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's coming up
later on in the album.
I'm Donald Trump in a white tee and white ones. The conversation is money, nigga. You want some money or conversation? He did say they're one and the same. Conversation is money. Like, do I want to talk to Jeezy? Maybe. I mean, those interviews are sort of entertaining. But, you know, I mean, it's a weird line. Like, the conversation is money, nigga. You want some. Like, is he saying he has a good conversation? He's a conversationalist? Or it's like, you know, like...
No, you know, if you ain't talking money,
I don't. Right. Okay. So, like, nigga, you want some? It was clunkily constructed. All right. Blew the brains out the Chevy, call it suicide. I already talked about the call it format an episode ago. Okay, like season 12
you're gonna
finale.
hate this album. Okay,
listen, I hate to see it rear its bloody brainless head here. Okay, bad bar, blew the brains out the Chevy, call it suicide. No, I won't.
Some of his bars could be simple in just a very simple way, and not like, oh wow, this is funny, or oh wow, this looped around to actually being kind of genius. It's just like sometimes a very simple bar, kind of like some of those bars I was knocking Wayne for on the Carter 4, to be fair. You know, he's not above some clunky bars on this album, but this album in general is less about bars. He even said it, like, you know, it's more about getting people to relate to him and to convey a certain struggle and then a certain hopefulness, you know, that you'll see yourself through that struggle, as opposed to just, you know, oh, I'm here to bar out. Which, you know, I do think if you go to Thug Motivation 102, to The Recession, you see him becoming a better MC album by album. Yeah. And I think 102 is worse than this album, personally. But the rapping from him is better.
Well, as far as this album, you know, when I hear shit like there's a message in my words, you got to decode it. You know, I'm kind of looking at the camera. I'm like, no, it's kind of right there. We don't need a fucking, what do they call, like, cryptologist? That nigga from Da Vinci Code? Like, it's not that deep. You know, but, I mean, look, flat six. All right. I mean, you say atmospheric. I get it. We're setting the scene. Yeah. He's here. He's on Def Jam South. Okay, he do it for the people. Trap or Die gave him hope. They waiting for the sequel. It did not give me hope. Review out now. Okay, I think that was a classic. Like, Mel had a breakdown at some point in that episode.
It didn't give me hope. And the funny thing is that because I never heard that mixtape until after I heard Thug Motivation 101, I felt that was a very you had to be there kind of moment. Like, if you weren't jamming with that tape at the time, all the best songs ended up on this album, and then you hear the tape afterwards, and it's just a lot of damn songs.
Yeah.
Review out now.
Bro, this is a lot of damn songs.
Oh, so. And I want to say, I've always liked this album cover. I don't know why Jeezy's in this, like, warehouse or this closet with all these filing cabinet-looking boxes, and, you know, I don't know, he's just sitting. I like it, you know? It's Shades of the Archive.
Oh, God. You know, I had never actually looked at the cover, like, you know, like, focused on it and really picked it apart until this week because, you know, I got to put the little Photoshop together. Yeah, but, like, I guess I always assumed he was, like, in, like a kitchen or something, like, pots and pans or, like, you know, cooking up work. But, like, I'm like, why is he in, like, a fucking, like, library,
you know, what
like,
it looks
record
like?
Cabinet room?
It looks like someone rented a flat bat, like a, what do you call it, like a 18-wheeler, basically, and then opened the inside of it and filled it with those those things you can buy at like Home Depot or Lowe's. They're like shelves, but they're just made out of metal, and you just screw them together real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like for storing shit in your garage, and then just like a bunch of waterlogged banker's boxes that you'd put in like a filing cabinet behind him. What's he doing in there?
I don't know. You know, I mean, is he... I don't know. I have no idea. But
he's a stowaway. He's like hiding in like a truck somewhere, it looks like, or hiding in like a warehouse.
It's
for what reason, I don't know. His jeans are massive.
Is he looking for something?
If you're trying to hide, those aren't good jeans, you know?
These are like boxes of like where you keep like, what is it, like courtroom documents, or like, you know, these are not... What does this have to do with the trap?
These are all Russell Simmons NDAs.
Oh God. All right. Look, I've got nothing else for this. We got 18 more tracks to go here. So
do we now? Okay. I guess this is a long class.
You want to move on?
Yeah. Well, you know, you can always ask the teacher if you can leave to go to the bathroom and then just walk the halls for 15 minutes.
You know, that gimmick, I probably only pulled that once or twice in school, because it's like, you know, you got to come back, you know,
and you know, you're missing shit that you're going to have to like triangulate.
Right. It's like, what's the point? Don't even pull that, you know. I've
pulled it a couple times. I just couldn't bear the thought of learning or thinking anymore at times, you know.
Sometimes you got to get out the room.
That's why I like this album.
You know. Oh shit. Apparently that's why a lot of people like the album. It's Jeezy. He's real, and it ain't no frills.
Yeah, he's as real as it gets.
Yeah, sure. Okay. You want to move on?
Yep.
Right now I gotta stand up. All right, class. Just like, get up out your desk. It's like, fuck.
Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from, and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.